Hi Chris, how are you?
Good evening, Rod. Yeah, I'm well. Here we are. It's episode 228. It's the 9th of June, and it's the day after WWDC.
That all those things are true, and we did think about doing a podcast yesterday, but we decided let's just reflect on what we've seen.
Yeah, which was probably a good idea. I think I'm maybe more optimistic than you is my gut right now, but let's see how we get on through the show. So we were going to record it straight after the WWDC, which was an exceptionally short keynote, coming in at like 75 minutes or something, which I don't think anybody had that as a guess.
Yeah.
And it was very different to previous years.
Uncharacteristic, and I think the prediction that I had that we might see start with Tim and end with John Turnus. John Turnus was nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, okay. So let's just cover off. WWDC is Apple's developer keynote. They do it every year around this time, early June, and then they release all the developer betas of all their software usually, and then it comes out in September with the new iPhones, and then everybody that's got an iPhone that will take it, or an iPad, or a Mac, or a watch, or a TV, or a set of goggles can install it legitimately. But you can largely, anybody can go and download the betas now. I wouldn't, because they're going to be ropey in places. But yes, I didn't think John Turnus was possibly going to make an appearance because Tim's still the boss until the 1st of September. And I feel like the iPhone show is where he's really handing the baton over. But this was probably Tim's last appearance on a keynote.
Definitely his last WWDC. And actually, we haven't talked about the weather. Just let's quickly do that. How's your weather?
Really weird. 4 seasons in one day, isn't that a Crowded House song? We've had that today.
Well, we haven't had the snow, but yeah, all the other things we've had. Good, let's move on. So before WWDC started, Tim posted something to Twitter. I don't know if you saw this.
I did see it come past me. It's not called Twitter anymore, but you know, I'll let it go.
I'm going to call it Twitter.
Yeah, I think it's a better name.
Zitter. X-Itter, something like that. Anyway, he published, and hopefully I've muted the sound on this good morning video, and that might be a mistake for me to try and imitate Tim, but it's just like I won't play the whole thing, but a minute and 6 seconds of, I think some of them are celebrities, maybe? I mean, that's Jimmy Kimmel.
I recognised him, and that was probably all I recognised, but it was kind of cool because people do mock him for saying good morning in his typical accent, but I didn't recognise half the people. I did quite like that Brett Goldstein's doing it though. I
was going to say, of course you recognise Brett Goldstein. So they all say good morning. Brett Goldstein says it in a very Roy Kent kind of way.
Which is really different. Like when you hear Brett Goldstein in normal life, his Roy Kent voice is so different.
Yeah, he's quite the, as Laurence Olivier might have said, quite the lovey. He's sort of quite the proper actor, isn't he, when you hear him doing it? And he's a good actor. I'm not knocking Brett Goldstein at all. And his podcast I've mentioned before is excellent too. But yeah, this is 1 minute 6 of people saying good morning. Obviously, Tim really wants to say goodbye at this point, but you know.
Yeah. Maybe that's how he should have ended.
It would be a good ending. Maybe in the iPhone video, if he does pass the torch at that point. Or maybe before that, because he finishes in September, right?
1st September, Turnus takes over.
Yeah, so maybe that was it.
Yeah, I think that's it.
That was it. So good morning and goodbye, Tim. And then on to it, really. And I think let's just share apple.com, I think, is probably the best thing to do as we talk about this. So we'll go through the show, the short keynote, as you mentioned, with our sort of hot takes as we go. And I'll try and remember to fling the odd thing up on the screen here as we go through. So my first hot take was, God, the music gets worse every year before the pre-roll for the actual video. I don't know if you were there watching it before it started.
My family wanted to talk to me, so I missed all the music. But to be honest, most of it I don't really know what it is anyway, so I just it's kind of just background noise to me.
Is this just me being an old man? Is that what it is? I don't recognise anything anymore.
Yeah, but that's probably me, isn't it, to be fair?
All right, so I mean, I'm older than you, Chris, but I thought it was pretty poor. Maybe my kids would have really liked it.
Yeah, I'm not, yeah. I just ignore it, to be honest. It's like ads on a web page. I just don't even see them anymore. I just glaze straight over them.
Yeah, when that's possible. So I thought the music was bad. Tim was up first to do his usual, introduction to WWDC. We were straight into, there was no heartfelt stories of Apple Watches saving people's lives or fall detection or any of that stuff.
No Formula One cars racing around the top of Apple Park, which I did go back and rewatch last year. And I think, actually, to be fair, they did a cracking job of that last year.
But it was uncharacteristic for WWDC that they didn't have any. There was a little bit of whimsy, but not the amount. No Mother Nature, no green stuff, no our things are going to be better than ever. It was really just straight in and onto it.
Yeah, it was quite muted and very quick. That was what I noted. But do you think it's because they're eating a little bit this is my opinion. This is their apology keynote. They're trying to right three wrongs. And so maybe they were just trying to be a little bit muted because they knew this was the apology keynote.
Yeah, maybe. And let's touch on that in a second. Tim said that there were 1,000 submissions to the App Store an hour now. How much of those are AI slop, do you think?
Well, I don't know. And what I didn't understand, though, is how many are new apps and how many are just updates. But that's quite a lot.
It's quite a lot. And I suspect quite a lot of them are vibe coded. They had a little shout out to the iPhones on the Artemis probe that went, well, the manned Artemis mission that went around the moon. That's quite cool. They didn't go into any great detail. They just sort of flipped by it on a slide. And then they were here today to talk about Apple Intelligence and Siri advancements. And I thought, if you were going to do a drinking game for this WWDC, you'd be quite hammered by the end of it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It was going to be the AI one, isn't it? This is what 2024 should have been.
So immediately they then handed over to Craig, and the three pillars on which this keynote hinged were responsiveness, safe and trusted, and Apple Intelligence. And you've said it twice now, the apology keynote, that this is what they wanted the keynote in 2024 to be, where they were actually demonstrating real things on real devices rather than the completely made-up nonsense that they settled a lawsuit for $250 million for before.
Yeah, this is them getting on the AI train properly, which they tried to do 2 years ago and was just not good. This is them righting the wrongs of last year where they got the design wrong, and it feels like they're correcting it, and they acknowledge that. And they're also trying to right the wrong of, we've got all your children addicted to devices and now we're going to give you a better way to deal with it. So that's why I think it's the apology keynote. In all three areas, they were basically just saying, we're sorry for our previous actions and we're going to make good on various promises. And yeah, it was very different, wasn't it? Because what they didn't do, which is what I was expecting, right now we're going to dive into the phone or the iPad or the Mac, and they kind of whitewashed the whole lot in a oneer.
Yeah, it was a bit odd from that point of view that there wasn't a lot of differentiation between the products. There was little bits of macOS. For example, macOS 27 is going to be called Golden Gates, and it got a little video, and Greg Federici did his usual Wonder and Apple Park stuff.
I kind of wish they dropped the names now.
Yeah, just call it 27.
Just call it 27. I don't remember the names anymore.
And all the jokes were quite flat. They got in their VW microbus and they went, took some drugs and went around California. And I'm like, okay, you've leaned into the San Francisco thing probably enough.
But they've done the hippie thing before, and it's just, come on now. I don't know. I don't think it's a good look.
Yeah. Straight out with two things as the macOS user between the two of us that I really cared about. One was all the windows will have the same curvature, so we're not going to have 5 different corner radiuses on every single window, which
was idiotic, and the new corner radius was too rounded.
Yeah. It's funny. I have installed, without spoiling anything, the beta on one of my Macs, not the one I record on because I'm not a crazy man. And looking at how round the corners are again now is actually slightly freaking me out. But let's move on. So they've dealt with a corner curvature, massive problem, and they've iterated on liquid glass, which is really we get it, we messed up with liquid glass, and they've given you a slider now for how opaque you want it to be. And actually, I don't know, I haven't installed the iOS beta, but on the macOS beta, I think it was the second screen when it went on there was the slider came up. That's the holding it up's not an answer, Chris. Did you get a slider?
Yeah, I can't remember if it was on the splash screen or not though. I think it was. Yes, it is on the splash screen. You're right. It is on the splash screen.
So, I mean, that's interesting that no matter what operating system you install on, you're getting that sort of push to the fore straight away. And I immediately made mine as opaque as possible because I think liquid glass has not been contrasty enough, and I have lost many things under Windows. And it's funny, in their little demo video of when they were scrolling windows past one another, it was really obvious the difference. I will say the splash screen slider wasn't very good. When you've actually got it installed and you go into system settings and you try and change it, it's far more obvious than the splash screen one. But I'm glad it's there. Good fix. Thank you, Apple.
Agreed. The only thing I will comment on is when you put it all the way to the left, it's more clear. More clear doesn't sound right. Shouldn't it be clearer?
Yeah, but I surely there was nobody out there wanting more glassy liquid glass. That can't have been a thing.
I might be going with more liquid glass. I quite like it.
You're a funny man. I did quite like
more clear though. Come on, that's not right, is it? Before we move on, that just doesn't. It's not. My head's struggling just with their language.
Yeah, that's because we speak English.
They're speaking Californian.
They're speaking some other language that's vaguely related to English. One thing I did like, speaking of the way you phrase things in English, that apparently the team appreciates feedback, which obviously means they got a lot of feedback about how much people disliked Liquid Glass.
It does feel like they've read the room, and I haven't got to play with macOS yet, really, but I have played with iPadOS, a little bit of tvOS, a little bit of iPhone. I was going to say iPhone OS, but it's iOS, isn't it? And it does feel like they've actually listened to the feedback, because sometimes they release a product like AirPods Max, and they've listened to none of the feedback, in the room, and they haven't made them any lighter. But it does feel like they've listened. They've made Liquid Glass, you've got the slider, tick. They fixed the corner radius on Mac, tick. And then they've generally put a toolbar back in place. Like, imagine that. You now get a toolbar rather than you just having your content smudge into the buttons that are magically floating. So it really does feel like this is what they should have released last year, or tried to course correct throughout the beta. So I think I'll take my hat off to them. I think they've done a good job.
I'm with you. I think the rowing it back to where it should have been last year. Last year was almost an you forget last year. Alan Dye is gone. They're rowing back a load of the changes he made. I quite like the fact on both macOS and iPadOS, sidebars are now proper sidebars. I like the fact in drop-down menus, there's no stupid bloody icons in all the menus anymore. They've gone back to just being text menus. These are all sensible things that a mature operating system should have in them, and it should be clear and usable. Toolbars are more consistent. There's just icons are better. They've just properly gone through in it a real nip and tuck.
Yeah, no, all of it is. I think it's really good, and none of it is major. They've just dialed it, just tweaked everything in the right way. I must confess, the new icons, like the main icons that you launch app, really like what they've done there. They're all just a little bit clearer. I think they're really good. They've got rid of some of the gradients. They've really just tidied them up, and I think it actually makes the iPhone and the iPad look really good. So I'm loving all of it. I've really come around to Liquid Glass. I think this was the iteration we all needed.
I think that's a step too far. I think they've improved on it by making it more like what came before.
No, I'm quite enjoying it.
You're the only person I know who actually thinks that. I'm glad it's back to something that I feel is usable again. For the last year using my Mac, I mean, I look past it a lot of the time because it's about what I'm doing on it more than what's there.
Yep.
But now I have the ability to see how it should be. I'm far more appreciative of my Mac again.
I mean, I haven't used it on the Mac in earnest. I've installed it on a test one. So I reserve judgment on the Mac, but on the iPad and the iPhone, I've really enjoyed it.
So this goes hand in hand with our other sort of core theme in this point, which was system optimization. I mean, they really should have called this Snow Liquid Glass or something like Snow Golden Gate, because this felt like this part of the keynote, at least. They were going through, they were fixing issues, they were doing optimizations, they're making things faster, better transitions, quicker launching, 67%, faster doing X, Y, and Z was a lot of the sort of talk that they gave. I mean, that's good to see. There is a slide going around somewhere which lists all the things that they've released that they didn't talk about in the keynote, which had a huge amount on it. I will say, I don't think switching things in full screen is any faster than it was before, though. I've tried a little bit of it on my Mac, and you still get quite a delay. And I don't know if you know this, but how quickly you transition between full screen apps is related to the frequency of your monitor. So if you have a 120 hertz monitor or a 240 hertz monitor, it takes longer on those than it does on a 60 hertz monitor, which is just madness.
This is why most Apple monitors are 60 hertz. What I was going to say there, though, is we are running beta 1. Some of these bullet points might be from beta 2, which obviously we don't get yet, but they're already halfway there in Apple Park, aren't they? So we may not be seeing everything quite yet. And obviously the speed's quite hard to tell how quick it is, but they're basically saying speed improvements absolutely everywhere. Like when you open photos, new photos will appear quicker. When you do AirDrop, it will work quicker. When you do AirPlay, it will be quicker. It just feels like they've really gone into absolutely everything. And there's one where even on older iPhones, I think they're doing better multitasking, and they've just really tried to speed up everything. One thing I noticed was faster window switching in iPadOS. Just speed everywhere is what I wrote in my notes, which is fantastic, isn't it? So we needed this. Everything's got a bit bloated. I know chips got faster, But they need to do this every couple of years, is pause and tidy up. Do you remember we had it quite a few years ago? They did it with iOS and it was noticeably quicker. So yeah, much appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, it might be hard to tell in a beta though, because they've got so many sort of analytics built into it, battery saving, well, no battery saving and all that kind of stuff. But
Battery draining.
Battery draining is what they tend to put in the betas. I mean, you'll know better than me. I'm not going to install it on my iPhone at this point. I might give it a few versions before I do that. I learned that lesson quite expensively a couple of years ago. They explicitly said that the iPad Files app was now closer in performance to the Mac, so I'll have to let you feedback on whether that is actually the case.
Yeah, and I do use it quite a bit. Now I've got my NAS up and running and I've got that pinned in there. I haven't used it much today, but I will do. Let me do some testing.
It's early doors. iOS 27 is going to be supported all the way back to the iPhone 11, so I think that's good news and quite surprising.
Not dropping any phones. It was very much rumoured the 11 was going away.
Yep. Phone is going to be better at network switching, so that point where it sort of hangs onto your home or hotel Wi-Fi rather than switching to cellular or vice versa when you go indoors. Apparently they're going to improve that. That's a good thing. I see quite a lot of that, of it trying to sort of linger on a connection that it's think it's got and then everything sort of fails.
I get this at home where it doesn't go on the Wi-Fi quick enough, and it's still there in this beta, so I will keep you posted if that improves.
You're getting an improved send indicator in messages around media. So that's specifically if you're at a football match or a sporting event and you go to send a picture of it, and then everything backs up behind the photo because the photo is not sending, that your messages will continue to be delivered while it caches the photo in the background. I think that's only a good thing. Of course, for the 5 people that actually use iMessage or messages, everybody else has moved on to WhatsApp. I know you're one of the 5. I'm counting you, Chris. Don't worry.
It's me. It's literally me and all my mates because I make people message me in messages.
It's just as well. I'm such close friends with you because you're about the only person I still message there. That's not true. My daughters are still in there as well. Improved search index across all platforms. I am forcing myself. I got a new Mac at work. We'll talk about this next week, and it's not going on the beta. I'm forcing myself to use Spotlight rather than Alfred at the moment. So I will be in a position to actually comment at some point about whether it is actually better or not. I think.
You know, Spotlight's dead now, right?
Spotlight is dead. It's Siri AI, right?
It's just Siri everywhere now. It does kind of make sense. Siri and Spotlight have morphed into one. So you just search, and it actually seems pretty good.
Yeah, but your clipboard history is not in Siri AI, is it? Come on.
I haven't gone to Clipboard yet. I just used it on my phone.
Clipboard's got to go somewhere. I mean, I suppose there is now. Spoilers. There's a Siri app now, so your conversations will go in there. But you're not going to paste 15 items ago from your clipboard from Siri, are you?
No, but so on the phone, when you launch Spotlight to go and get an app, or on your iPad, you're basically typing in the app name and you just launch the app. It doesn't save it into Siri. I guess if you type something different in or say something, that's when it goes off to Siri.
We shall see. Anyway, better search index, better mail search. Nobody uses Apple Mail. I'm going to move on. Perimenopause. You don't use Apple Mail, Chris.
I might do.
Really?
For personal email, not for work. And I don't really do a lot of personal email. It's just like orders of stuff. That's largely what I use it for.
Wow. Perimenopause tracking in health, along with period tracking that was already there. So that's an expansion of that. It's quite important. Custom EQ on AirPods. I thought this was already a thing. I seem to remember there being a custom profile you could install for your listening environment or your particular hearing on AirPods. Yeah, because when the hearing test came in, there was something specific you could do.
Oh, maybe you're right. I don't know. I don't use my AirPods enough anymore.
It might not have been EQ. It might have been some other setting, but custom EQ is there.
They've been doing lots with AirPods, haven't they? And it's got quite messy, all the settings. So I think they're making that better now.
Vision OS they said something about it, but I ignored it because it's Vision OS and who cares. There's going to be newer 3D effects on maps. There's a new flyover thing. I've never used this.
It actually looked quite good in that it was proper 3D rendered flyovers using all the 3D assets. So I thought it actually looked quite cool. All the vector assets. Sorry, that's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, but do you ever just scroll around a city doing that?
Not really. It's quite cool tech, but no.
Exactly.
It's typical Apple, though. It's a little bit hidden.
It just feels kind of pointless to me, really. You know, if you're on a map, you're walking, you're getting a taxi, you're driving, you're doing public transport. You're not just randomly scrolling around a city going, ooh, look at the nice buildings. And I get they showed New York because of course they did, but most British cities don't look like New York. Most Spanish cities don't look like New York. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm being
agreed.
Maybe I'm being unfair. And then there's lots of little updates as we talked about before. And that was it, sort of for the overview session.
Whoa. You missed the 2 big updates.
No, I didn't. What did I miss?
I can now have the menu bar on all the time on my iPad.
Is that a big update?
That's a big update. I'm quite happy about that.
I guess I don't use iPad often enough to.
So I'm happy with that one. And what was the other one I was just going to comment on? Apparently, you've got smoother unlocking when you unlock your iPhone. I don't know what that means. They've got some quite subjective stuff here. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all goes.
I will say on my phone, which is a new phone, as we've discussed, it does occasionally get its knickers terribly in a knot between the always on lock screen and whether it's unlocking and whether it's showing me an app. And occasionally I just need to lock it again. It's puzzled about what state it's in.
Yeah, I have seen a little bit of that. And actually, the last big update, you can now have a tiny clock. So you don't have to have a big clock. But what I can't seem to do is get rid of the date. So I can have a tiny clock, but I must have the date, apparently. So there you go.
I probably tap my iPhone screen the most to see what the date is, but there you go. So after those two big updates and everything else that they talked about there, they moved on to the next big section of the keynote, which was trust and safety.
Yeah, and I must confess at the top, I was like, what are they going to talk about here? You know what I mean? I was like, I don't know where that's going. So it was quite interesting to see where they went with this.
So what they leaned into was, of course, they've got two-factor authentication, they've got crash protection, all that stuff. They didn't give any specific stories this time. But what they really, really pushed on was they wanted to, and had already built, a safe and trusted platform for kids, which I take issue with. I don't think they have built a safe and trusted platform for kids. Nor do I think that the way they've leaned into this is the right way to go, because basically what they've said is, we've already given you screen time, so we're going to double down on that and give you slightly more granular ability to divide things into games or social networking or things of that nature. But it all goes back to the parents. So they, as a platform owner, are pretty much going, well, it's your problem, not ours, as far as I could see. There was a little bit around sort of age ratings in the App Store, but we know how ridiculous the App Store is anyway. Even if you're a good developer and you tie into that, you've still got scammy gambling apps, you've still got all sorts of things in there which may not be appropriate for their age ratings. They can get through it. So I feel this is pandering to the way that governments and things are moving at the moment. They want age restrictions. I've had a couple of people very upset, at Apple about the way they're bringing in age stuff. We talked about it on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. People who were logging into their phones after the 25.6 update and being told they had to, enter a credit card or enter their passport or enter their driving license. So this, I understand why they did it. I don't think they've done a particularly good job. I don't think screen time has been the best or most robust feature. There was an article in The Verge today about how dreadful screen time is and how many hours a parent had wasted in trying to get it to work properly. And I know, I haven't used it in several years now, but I've fought with it quite heavily in years gone past. So I just feel like this is kind of a dodge by Apple more than anything.
Yeah, and I have used screen time a little bit with the kids. I'm just kind of coming to the end of it now as the kids, I know they're only early teenagers, but I've got quite a bit of trust with the kids, and that's been the deal with them of, look, I can see what you're doing. I can look on the network switch, see what you're doing. Don't use your phone when you go to bed. Don't use it before you get up in the morning, kind of thing. And that's worked quite well, but I just kind of gave up with screen time because it is frustrating. What annoyed me a little bit with this part of the video, though, is they seem to be selling some things as being brand new, but it's like, I'm fairly confident that was already there. It wasn't great, but the way you've worded it, you've kind of forgotten that this functionality existed before. It definitely needed an overhaul, and I do think Apple have got better at this, but they need to go back to things they've released and modernize them. Do you know what I mean? And I know they can't modernize everything, and they've got like a rolling schedule, but I'm glad they've gone back to screen time and modernized it because it needed it. It wasn't great, let's put it that way.
It did need it, but again, I just want to sort of focus on this pushing it on the parents. Basically, you set the screen time things, and there's some sort of slightly more flexible things. You can allow certain apps during school. You can allow, extra hours for games at the weekends, that kind of stuff. But the thing that got me is it all goes into requests for the parents. So I want to install an app, request for the parents. I want to access a new website, request for the parents.
That's there now.
A new contact comes along, you need to approve them. And that might be there now, but my point is, A, they might have made it more modern, but B, in the same way we criticize Windows Update for it continually pushing out authenticate, and the Mac does the same thing. Put in your password. I think parents will get numb to this. Every single time something comes along, they'll just go approve, and before you know it, you'll be back where you were. And
it depends how harsh you set it, I guess.
I just know what human nature is. We get fatigued of having it do these kinds of things. It's like the Chat GPT thing. eventually you start to trust the answers and you stop thinking critically about it in the same way that your security can go like that. Unless you're the most on-it parent in the world, and then, maybe you're too far the other direction at that point. I'm surprised your kids have got an iPad at all if you're policing every single thing that they do. It smacks to me of them just trying to dodge this issue. They're putting the bare minimum they need to do, and they've gone, right, it's your problem now. And I don't think I've got an answer for this, but I'm not sure this is the right one.
It's a tricky one to get right, isn't it? Because most people don't want their children having devices too young, but then you want them to have a device, but maybe not take it everywhere. And then when they do start going to school, you want them to be able to interact with their mates, but you've got to get the balance right. And I think it's really hard to get this right. And I think there isn't one size fits all, is there? So different families want to police their kids in different ways. So I guess you've got to have a little bit on the parents.
Sure. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have. Ultimately, the children are the parents' responsibility. I'm not arguing against that. I just don't feel they've gone very far with that. And again, a fundamental problem with this is I don't think most parents understand what's in there now. I don't know how well or effectively they're going to surface this in the future. It's all very well putting in a few more guardrails in here, but my point is that parents are hassled. They don't know what's there. They'll just, they'll default to off, and then I don't know. It's very half-hearted, I think, and we're probably both agreeing on that as much as anything. Yeah, they've given something that was already there a bit of a coat of paint. They've dusted it off a bit. Maybe it will be better. Time will tell. And, it's only early in the beta days, isn't it? Maybe it'll get better. Maybe iOS 28 will make it even better again. But there's something at this sort of crux we're at now with the way that applications and operating systems are becoming the responsibility of the state in terms of what people are allowed to see and what the state allows you to see in terms of nudity or violence or gore, which Apple themselves pulled out within this. The whole thing makes me very uncomfortable, and I guess we'll see where it ends up.
Yeah, it is a tricky one though. Like I say, I'm glad they revisited it. But you're probably in a similar boat to me. How many friends do you see they've got children? They go, oh, I didn't know we could do screen time. I didn't know we could restrict our kids' phones. How do I set up an Apple family? How do I do this? And it is challenging. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. You've got 5 people sharing the same, iCloud account. There's no other family members in there. I told you before about one of my sister's boyfriends. He could see all the mum's texts because they were both signed in the same thing.
That's not good, is it?
And if there's one of those people, there's lots of those people. So you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
There's more fundamental things they need to fix in the operating system. Anyway, we've spent long enough on that. Let's move on to the third and by far longest part of the keynote, which was Apple Intelligence.
Yeah, which I think we all thought was coming. So it wasn't a shock. And I did wonder how they were going to do it. And I guess I do quite like that they're just going, we've done this once and this applies to all our platforms. Like, this is where Apple have been going for a long time, really. The platforms have merged into one. And now, I'm still not sure about the name, but they're introducing Siri AI, as your webpage shows us. So I don't think Siri's a good name. I guess they need to reboot it. So is that Siri is in artificial intelligence, or is that Siri with Apple Intelligence?
Well, this is Apple Intelligence version 2, and the dirty little secret is it's not Apple Intelligence at all, it's Google Gemini.
With a bit of Apple frosting on the top. But it is like Siri version 20, and hopefully they've actually got it right. I've had a little play with it. I managed to get on. So when you install the beta, you can then sign up to join Use Siri AI, and I've signed up, I've got it, they've enabled me. It's not great in that some things still don't work, but at least I can try it out. But initial impressions is it actually does what I ask it to do, which is a massive step forwards, I would suggest.
Well, that's something. I found the settings, turned it on, requested my Apple Intelligence thing, and I've got nothing yet. So I will go back and look at my Mac later to see if I've been enabled, but it doesn't look like it so far. So
I was angry before I got it, though, because when you invoked Siri, you got the old ball animation rather than the screen edge animation, which I loved the screen edge animation, but that's now gone by the looks of it, which is a shame because I thought that was actually quite cool.
Yeah, but they need to distance themselves from that because it didn't work. It was dumber than ever.
Agreed. It does feel, though, that they should merge Apple Intelligence and Siri into one thing because they seem to both go so hand in hand now.
So, I mean, this was basically deja vu from 2024, more or less everything that they announced here. And Mike Rockwell came out and demoed it, and you and I both commented on this during the keynote, that they seemed to be doing it in real time. When he was asking Siri to do things, they were actually giving it time. The editors must have hated it All that.
Yeah, and it wasn't quick, was it? Like, so the screenshots they were showing, so they had a camera pointing at the presenter, and then they had another one like over their shoulder looking at the phone, and it seemed to line up. Like they didn't do it in multiple shots, but when things took a little while, you got the animation and you had to wait. And I thought, they really want to prove that this is legit, which is the right thing to do after the 24 shenanigans of when they fudged it and then they never delivered it.
Yeah, which it was interesting this year. There was none of this coming later in the, it was just, it's all coming because it's in the developer program at the moment. Yep. But it all seemed to be implied that it was going to happen for the general public when they drop the final versions of iOS 27. So
that was the same last year as well. I think they've learned their issue from 2 years ago where they announced too much stuff and they couldn't deliver it.
Yes, but they didn't really announce anything other than glassy effects last year. They're trying to walk and chew gum at the same time this year.
Yeah, fair.
So there's a dedicated Siri app now. It can now follow conversations. So rather than immediately forgetting what you asked the question before, you can follow along. If you go into the app, you'll be able to maintain those conversations and see what's going on. Your personal context is within that. So if you've loaded a CV or something in the same way if you have to ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, you can come back and revisit those conversations. Is the implication. Whether it works or not yet, I don't know. You're saying you're seeing some improvement, but it's early doors. It can be customized for speed and expressivity. There was 2 sliders. I thought the voice demo was bad and I didn't understand what it was saying.
Yeah, the voice was awful. It doesn't work, but there is a screen where you can opt into the new voices, but I can't do it. It just doesn't do anything. So it feels like that's coming. So you'll be able to tweak the voice to make it more natural, I guess, to what you would like to hear. So I'm curious to see what that's going to look like.
Yeah, they then did a little demo about Show Me World Cup teams, picked out a couple of nations and went for menus related to what teams they picked. I think they picked Brazil and Denmark or somebody like that. It was
I can't remember. It was okay. The demo was okay. It wasn't mind-blowing.
What I liked was underneath the 2 teams he picked were Scotland and Haiti, and I would have much liked to have seen something about deep-fried Mars bars and some sort of Cajun stuff.
Haggis, can of iron brew. Being wildly stereotypical here.
Well, as a Scotsman, a pizza crunch, which is a deep fried pizza, is genuinely a thing. Yeah, Chris, you're making the appropriate face.
My heart's like having a palpitation as you mentioned.
Yeah, just thinking about it. Have I told you this? I went to do a talk. This is not at all podcast related. I went to do a talk about becoming a researcher. And one of the things that inspired me to become a researcher was a Scottish paper called An Apple a Day, which was about how you improve the health of people in the west of Scotland. And at the time, they didn't know why the west of Scotland was so bad. This is only 1993. They didn't know why the health in the west of Scotland was so bad, and they were theorising it was hard water that was causing heart disease. And then they went, hang on, it's not hard water. It's smoking, diet, exercise, cancer screening. These are the things we need to fix. And there's a paper in the Lancet called Deep and Crisp and Eaten, the Deep Fried Mars Bar. And I just think it's the greatest title of any academic paper ever.
Yeah, okay, it's quite cool.
Yeah, sorry, away from that diversion. So the voices was bad. I liked the fact that they seemed to show the real sort of speed of the thing. We get a Siri app icon on Mac and iOS. One thing I didn't like was they added lots of things in the Mac version to the right-click context menu. So when you right-clicked on things to keep it going. Now, I don't know about you, but if you go into Notes and you right-click on an item on your Mac, the context menu must have 30 things in it. It's
huge. I hadn't realised that. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And I just feel that's unnecessary cruft. The right-click menu, which Apple resisted for a very long time, let's not forget that, is now far too big.
Yeah, that's for me. The right-click's the frequent stuff. Everything else should either be toolbar or up in the menus. Agreed with you there.
Yep. So that was bad. The other thing I thought was bad was Siri and visual intelligence. I don't think visual intelligence is very interesting or clever. I genuinely don't.
No, I must confess I haven't really used it. And what's annoyed me is on the camera app on the new beta is Siri Intelligence now sits between photo and portrait, which is a bit annoying because they're probably the 2 photo modes I use. And using Siri in camera is probably something I'm not going to use.
No, I mean, I can understand if you're having a conversation, you've put a screenshot in there, then it becomes vaguely useful if you're trying to explain, show me the system setting to find and change this thing. Yeah, all right, maybe that's quite useful, but I don't need it in my camera. I really don't.
Agreed. It should be off to the side if it is going to be in there.
Not dominant in your camera app like that, no.
Yeah. I must confess, have you seen this? Have you used the Siri app at all? I guess you haven't.
No, I haven't because I haven't got access to the.
It's pretty much the worst designed app I've ever seen because it's just like somebody's done the like Xcode tutorial. It's just awful. It's just unintuitive. I keep going to the search box. Oh, there's a field. I'll type in there. Oh no, I've got to click new and then do that. So I just don't think it's terribly intuitive. There's no design to it. It's really, really disappointing. It should be something that they've added a bit of sparkle to, but they haven't, which I'm a bit sad.
Yeah, that's not very good, is it? I'm scrolling here on the website to see if there's an example of it I can find, but
They ain't going to want to show you a screenshot because there's nothing to show.
that's not good. So we're getting that. There'll be some Siri writing stuff, so it'll do grammar, it'll do proofreading, which is potentially actually useful. I don't want it to write in my tone of voice, but I do want to check if I've missed commas or that's an inappropriate word or I've repeated an and or that kind of thing. That's genuinely helpful. There's going to be more integration. So what they demonstrated was there's going to be apps. You'll be able to call on the personal intelligence context and the built-in models. Then they demonstrated, and you quite like this, you said earlier today, auto tab management. So if you've got a bunch of Pinterest tabs open, it will put them all together in a tab group. Is that basically what it does?
Yeah, I had like some Claude tabs open because I was just having a look at Claude, more not even logged into it, but just looking at various pages on their website, and it just magically grouped them together. And they were tabs I had opened before I installed the 27 update, and so when it rebooted in, I opened up the it just grouped them together in a nice little drop down, and I was like, actually, that's quite cool, quite like it.
I mean, I get it. There's tab overload, and I look at some people's computers, and there's literally hundreds of tabs open, so maybe they do need a bit of it. I also think you'll get a certain kind of person that knows exactly where everything is and does not want them moved around like that.
Agreed, but I usually end up with so many tabs open that actually is quite useful because every now and again I just declare bankruptcy and close them all and start fresh.
I mean, so that's vaguely useful. I thought the notify me thing, where you can tell it to watch a website for when something's changed, is actually quite useful. If you're waiting for concert tickets, or you're waiting for an update for something being back in stock, that could potentially be useful if Siri actually announces to you that that's a thing.
Price drop on like a hard drive you're watching on your favorite American retailer, maybe.
Yeah, or eBay, a new item goes on list that's super rare that you're looking out for. I mean,
I wonder where you manage that though. Like, how do you see all your all the things you're watching, or don't you anymore?
Yeah, they also, and I can't remember, I might have already put this in lower down, but while I think about it, I thought Siri managing your bad passwords is really bad. Really, really, really bad.
So yeah, I've got that as well. So one of the new features with this is you can go in the passwords app and basically go, all right, Siri, all the ones that have been flagged as bad, go and change them for me and just update the passwords app. Now, I've done this manually. I did this for my wife. I went through and did all her passwords and all her email and got it all sorted so that she was in a good place and they weren't all the same word. Would I trust AI to go and do that? I'm not sure I would. But maybe that's just, you've got to build your confidence.
Do you really? Yeah, so that was the thing I'm not sure with. They then said something about Vision OS that I ignored. It's on Vision OS as well. Great, wonderful. I couldn't understand the voice there either. What else? Describe an extension. So this was vibe coding an extension for Safari, right?
Are we just going to end up with loads of people vibe coding stuff that's going to randomly break at some point? That's what I'm slightly worried about. I don't know if that's just me, but
that's exactly what's going to happen. I mean, I quite like the notion of, and isn't this what they talked about when the rumors of the Vision Pro were a thing, that you'd be able to describe an app and it would build it for you? I mean, it just sounds exactly like this.
Isn't that pretty much where we've ended up now, though, in that people can do that and just vibe code something, and you've talked your way through it. You're not worrying about testing and edge cases. You just kind of want to make an app that does this. Thank you very much. And I think that's fine if it's for personal consumption. I worry when people start putting these things out there.
Yeah. Now, I clearly got bored because I'm looking at my notes for this point. I start talking about people's clothing. I said there's a bunch of stuff that requires Apple apps. Yes, some Apple apps are good, but I don't use Mail. I occasionally use Safari when the mood strikes me. I don't use, any of the other built-in things very much at all. So they're sort of preaching to a very default crowd unless they've made the APIs for these things really good. It bubbling emails it thinks are very important to the top of your mail is useful? Maybe? Don't know. I mean, is that how people manage their email? They expect AI to do it for them? Do they want to write the replies to them as well?
Yeah, and that is a world I do feel we're going to end up living in. You've got people using AI to write email and then people at the other end using it to summarize. I don't get enough email for that. I'd like to keep an eye on my email. Like you were talking about tabs earlier. I'm quite happy that my tabs can be just deleted at will, whereas actually email, I manage it as my to-do list. It's going to be curious to see, but it does feel like there's a whole bunch of AI stuff and they're going to link with other apps. It's curious to see where that's going to go.
I just feel like this was the AI slop section of the keynote, with one exception of the thing that I thought would be quite good, and you actually liked this as well, which was in HomeKit. If you've got cameras, it will group your notifications more sensibly.
It's not just group your notifications, but they're also increasing the quality of my camera. I don't know how they're doing that, but the picture quality is way better on my iPhone than it is on anybody else in my house. So I think that's kind of cool. So that was the one bit that did get me, that actually the home is better. And today, the dog walker came and picked up my dog and it said, somebody's taking your dog out. And if I loaded up my dog walker's face into known faces, would it say, Mrs. Dog Walker's come and taken Ronnie the dog for a walk? That'd be curious to see.
That's pretty cool. They said something about Image Playgrounds, and all I've written next to that is please God no, because Image Playgrounds is dreadful.
I haven't opened Image Playgrounds. I'm not even sure it's installed on any of my devices, but it looks like you can just go make any image you want in any style you want, and rather than using Apple's prescriptive styles, which were awful. This isn't my bag. I get why people might want to make an image for temporary things, but it's not for me.
No. You get something called spatial reframing, which is where you apply AI slop to a nice picture you might have taken so you can get it from a slightly different angle, so you can put your kids' faces and computer generate them instead of something else. So this looks also dreadful. There are token limits on all this stuff, so you need to be an iCloud Plus member, I think, to make use of a lot of this stuff, but you're going to hit the bumps pretty quickly if you mess around a lot of times with image generation.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Yeah.
There was also something about wallpapers and an API and being able to code them as well, but I don't want that. I like a nice, carefully designed wallpaper, frankly.
I would concur with that statement. What I don't know, actually, is if you go into your iCloud settings, if you get iCloud Plus, you're going to get more AI tokens, but I've not seen that anywhere.
You'll know when you run out, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure there'll be a place to put my credit card in. But
they've already got your credit card, Chris. They've already got it.
That's true. But I'm sure there should be somewhere where they go, this is the cost of how many tokens you've got, and when they refresh. I haven't seen that anywhere.
Yeah, I know that if you pay for the keynote and pages and that creative suite thing that they've got going on, they do tell you how many tokens you're running out and if you're running low on them.
Yeah, so it would be good to see that somewhere, Apple, please.
You should explicitly say that. The EU, I've written, gets flicked the Vs. None of this is available in the EU because of the DMA, they say.
There's quite a disclaimer at the end, which was very rushed, and we're going to get to the requirements in a minute, but I didn't like the way they phrased that, I think. And it's not like Apple didn't know about the DMA. This isn't new. I'm sure it will come in a point something update in the fall, but that didn't feel... I don't think they dealt with that very well.
The thing, and there was a slight disclaimer for China and the rest of it as well, but this isn't news, Apple. You need to get on top of your country problem here, where you've got this sort of split approach to the way that you deal with things. The EU is a lot of your customers. You need to figure this out. If this is the new hotness that your operating system must have to make its next sort of strides forward, you need to figure out a way of getting it to all your customers. Otherwise, maybe it's not that big a deal.
The other bit, though, is you've just done the trust and safety bit, Apple, where you've told us how amazeballs you are at privacy and all this, but yet you're not compliant with the EU in the next segment. I thought that was a little bit double-faced. I don't know what the right word is there, but it just didn't seem right to me.
No, I'd agree with you. And then there was some stuff about more agentic coding. They're going to build in better agentic coding out of Xcode, which is fine. I've used Claude and Xcode. It works. It's going to be more aware of new things. That's all.
Yeah, that's always been my problem when I've been trying to use... And I've probably been trying to use ChatGPT the wrong way, and I'm going to ChatGPT and going, give me some ideas around doing this sort of function or this thing, and then I paste it in and I edit it, and and I use it for ideas. I've never tried actually making a whole app out of a prompt. I think that's something I need to try at some point.
Oh, you should. I've tried it. I built my Fuel Finder app entirely doing that. Build me an app to do X, Y, and Z, and it goes off and starts coding it, and you've got something you can hit run on at the end of it. I mean, it's properly vibe coded. I take almost no responsibility for what's in there. It can do it. It's quite impressive.
Yeah, I'm sure it can. I think I still like to do a bit of coding myself, and it's getting that balance, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. You want to understand what it's doing, but believe me, Xcode is not a simple thing, and it can do many of the things for you. So, just a thought, try it. So they've got agentic stuff in there, and then, well, it's probably worth talking about here. Even as we look at this web page here, there's a really obvious thing missing. So we've got an overview of everything. We've got iOS, macOS, iPadOS, watchOS, even visionOS. But where is tvOS, Chris? Why doesn't it get a mention?
Because they've literally done nothing to tvOS. I think tvOS will come when they release a new TV box in the fall. I reckon they will do one once these are out, because there'll be AI functionality coming to tvOS, but you need the new chip. That's my gut. I've installed tvOS on an oldish Apple TV. You wouldn't know it's there. There's like one setting where you can increase the text size. That's it. So it's a bit disappointing, but maybe they've reached the point now where these OSs are quite mature that actually they're not going to be maybe they're not going to do anything every year to them, and actually this is now the start of next year's 28 themed ones will be just changes to everything all at once, and there'll be the odd snippet that's platform specific, which is a shame because the OSs are written for that specific platform, and we don't want everything that's on my iPhone to be on my goggles or my Mac. You want the services, but you want them to have changes specific to them. So it's going to be interesting to see where we go. Is this now the start of everything's just one OS blob?
Oh, you made that sound really nice.
Tried my best.
To run the new hotness, these new models, you need an iPhone Air or an iPhone 17 Pro. So this year's standard model iPhone is not good enough for this.
Yeah, that's a bit of a poo sandwich, isn't it?
Yeah, last year's iPhone 16 Pro is not good enough for this, and I think that's problematic.
I don't think that's great because they already had the announcement 2 years ago. It was like it will only run on the latest phone from the previous year, and it's like, oh, that was a bit steep. And then when you delivered it, it was awful. And now they're doing the same again. Not good.
Not good. An iPad with M4 and later with 12 gigabytes of memory or more. And that's quite important because I think only with the iPad, the M4, only like the 1 terabyte version had 16 gig in it. And then I think it changed when it went in the Air, but that's why they're making that stipulation. But they don't really advertise what RAM's in what device, so it's not easy to know that one. Nope. And a Mac with an M3 and later. So if you've got a Mac Studio with 120 gigs of RAM running an M2, you're out of luck.
Yeah, that's pretty rough, isn't it?
That's really rough. You need 12 gigs of memory in your M3 Mac. And then, this is the real sort of kicker. You just bought your shiny new MacBook Neo. No Apple Intelligence, top model for you.
Womp, womp, womp. That's bad.
On one level, it's not a surprise. You're running last year, or is it this year's iPhone chip? You're not running last year's iPhone chip. Great, so it doesn't have 12 gigs of RAM. But it's still the latest version of that laptop that Apple sell.
Yeah, it's a bit like you'd expect every model that they're selling from Christmas onwards would run it. Like, that does feel a bit ropey, doesn't it?
It's rough. There was no acknowledgement of dev issues and all the problems the devs have got with Apple at the moment. We've already touched on things with the DMA. We've already talked about lack of developer feeling they're welcome. There was a protest outside of Apple Park talking about Apple enabling people like Elon Musk to sell their notifying apps and all that kind of stuff on there. So there was no reflection of that. There was no wider feeling about trying to do anything about the discontent in the community about some of the decisions they made. I'm not entirely surprised about that. It's WWDC, and Apple never talks about political stuff like this. But I just think they should occasionally read the room.
Which is odd because they read the room on so much stuff, like with get the design wrong. They didn't really acknowledge getting the AI portion wrong the previous year, did they? But they did read the room on a lot, and so it's a bit frustrating, I think, that they didn't quite read the room with everything else.
That's me at the end of my notes for the keynote. Is there anything you want to add before we go into some stories of sort of broken since?
I was just going to open Image Playgrounds. It looks awful, so I'm just going to close it.
Yeah, close it again. All right, let's move on. So they then, as always happens after the keynote, as other things start to come out. And let's start with quite up-to-date Apple Watches won't be updated to iOS 27, to watchOS 27, including mine. I have an Ultra 1. No joy for me. It ends with 26 for this Apple Watch.
Now, for however good they've been with the iPhone and the iPad, and we knew Intels were going to get dropped from the Mac, right? They should have signposted this a little bit better, I think, because it feels a bit rough that the Apple Watch is so aggressive. So it's what, Series 10 and newer, is that right? Or is it Series 9 and newer?
The only Apple Watch models compatible with WatchOS 27 are the Apple Watch Series 9, Series 10, Series 11, Ultra 2, Ultra 3, and SE3.
So that's basically the last 3 years, which is quite aggressive because there's a new Series Watch every year, right? Do you think this is the problem though, where there was a whole spate of watches that had the same chip in them for like 4 years in a row, and now it's all come home to roost and you can't run it because they've all aged out in spectacular fashion?
I just think it's really bad for people that have bought these watches. If you got phones supported all the way back to 11, it seems very unfair. The Apple Watch Ultra still seems, in my head, like quite a new watch to me. It's probably 5 years old, isn't it? But still, if you've just bought a second-hand Series 11, that's not that long ago. And it's Apple's fault for not updating the chips, not the people that bought them. This feels slightly unacceptable to me. I think they should have gone from 10 or something. 9 seems far too soon to have killed these devices.
No, I'd agree. So the iPhone 11 came out in 2019, and the Apple Watch Ultra came out in 22.
Right, so that's quite a gulf, isn't it?
That's quite a gap. That's a 3-year difference.
I mean, there is a problem that people hang on to their Apple Watches. You and I say every year, it's boring. Why would you get the new one? It's boring. This is how you make people get a new one. You don't put the OSs on there and they're not supported. Nasty.
Because they had a long time where they did nothing with them. So I wonder what they've done underneath, though, to force the watch up, because it doesn't feel like they've released much. If they've made everything quicker, why have we cut so many watches out? I find that a little bit odd.
Yeah, so I don't like this. I think it's not very fair to consumers who may, have a slightly older Apple Watch and suddenly they're left out in the cold. It almost feels quite arbitrary that the reason they want to do it is to get people to upgrade their watches.
Yeah, it's an odd one. It just feels odd. Like if they'd have dropped the iPhone 11, I don't think anybody would have really complained. I'm happy they didn't, by the way.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody would really complain. But being so aggressive on the watch front seems bizarre.
Yeah. Also being dropped are 2 versions of the Apple TV. So it won't be supported on the Apple TV HD First Gen or the Apple TV 4K. These have been around a little bit longer, I guess. These have been out for a little while.
Well, the current Apple TV is 4 years old.
Yeah.
Like the one that you go and buy today. So,
but
that's no surprise.
At the same time, you've just told me that there's nothing particularly different in the operating system. If all I've done is given you slightly bigger tech somewhere, I'm sure the processor that can run a 4K program is more than capable of doing that.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that statement. So I was just looking now. So the Apple 4K came out in 2017.
Oh wow!
And the HD came out in 2015. So they've had a good run.
Yeah, it's not bad, I guess. I'll accept the HD one, but the 4K one, if you've got enough moxie to throw things around on a 4K TV, I suspect it could have been kept going a little bit longer.
So the 4K though, I mean, there's only been 3 generations of 4K in 10 years, which says something, doesn't it? They're just not very good at maintaining it.
No. So as well as Apple TVs, they've also dropped support for a bunch of iPads. iPadOS 26 supported iPad Air models from 3rd generation onward. iPadOS raises the floor to A14, M1 or later. So my iPad just makes the cut.
Yeah, I'm a bit rubbish on iPad models, I must confess, but okay, interesting. I know my mum has an old iPad and it's got 26 on it, and it is a little lethargic to say the least.
I don't like my iPad. So this is an M1 iPad.
You've never mentioned that you don't love the iPad.
I'm surprised it still held a charge. Actually, I can't remember when I charged it last. It's got 14% in it. I'll probably charge it up and put the beta on there because I've got nothing else to do with it. I don't like the fact that I don't know if it's just the M1 one, but the face unlock never really worked reliably for me. It was really, really poor. I almost always have to put in my passcode as well.
Maybe you've got the wrong face.
Works on my phone, mate.
I always find that with the Touch ID sensor. Like every now and again, I set it up. It's like, it works. It's great. And then a month later, Touch ID doesn't work anymore.
I may have just made a mistake by plugging my iPad in to charge it before. No doubt my monitor will break now while we're recording. It might have been a bad move.
No.
Yeah. So Again, you're going to need a fairly modern iPad to run this. And again, it's probably worth saying your hardware is not just going to go boom and expire the day iOS 27 comes out. It will keep working on what's on there. What you're not going to get, though, is largely security patches and updates, unless they're particularly egregious ones. However, it just feels a bit swinging, particularly on the watches to me.
Yeah, and also these people are stuck with the iteration of the bad version of liquid glass that you can't get away from. So, yeah, agreed. The watch does feel odd, like I say, because it feels like they've made everything faster this year. And I think the iPads it all feels a bit odd that they've dropped anything, if I'm being honest.
It's like a punishment. I see what you're saying. We'll move past the password story. iCloud Plus subscribers get new benefits. They get next-gen Apple Intelligence, and they get higher limits because they're iCloud Plus subscribers. So, yeah, you're going to get a little bit more of an iCloud Plus. I mean, that's not a surprise, is it? You always get a little bit more if you give Apple more money.
I think iCloud Plus is a weird one because I've just got, it's just the iCloud that you pay for, but you never really know what you're getting in it, do you? I think it's just a bit of a catch-all.
Yep, we've already said new Siri won't be available to those in the EU because of the Digital Markets Act, so there's a link in the show notes. Womp. Link in the show notes for those of you that want to do that. This did get a brief mention in the keynote, but we haven't talked about it so far. iOS 27 is adding independent volume settings for alarms, reminders, phone calls, all that kind of stuff. Not before time, frankly.
This is something that usually has their iPhone in silent mode, so this is a non-event, and I've got an old man's alarm clock.
Yeah, but not everybody does that. And I think if you're in a class...
I think I'm unique here, by the way.
If you're in a class, for example, and maybe you're a lecturer and you're teaching some students and their 10 o'clock alarm goes off because they've actually got out of bed for a change, you don't want that at maximum volume when somebody's teaching. Not that it's happened to me, obviously, but you know.
Yeah, I'm getting that this is a world you know more about than I do.
So I think this is a good thing. It's good to give users choice. It looks simple enough. You've got sliders. You can move things around. You know, this is actually a solid update to the operating system. And for those who are trying to hide their location a little bit more, maybe you've got particularly nosy partner, parents, or friends that you're sharing your location with, Find My in iOS 27 will let you temporarily disable your location, so you can knock it off for 12 hours without actually having to remember to go and turn it on again. So I guess that's useful too.
Yay. I guess that's yay.
If you care about such things, then yay.
Yay. I think on the whole, I was a bit down when I watched the keynote, but actually I've reflected. I think actually they've corrected a lot of the rubbish that they should have corrected, like the whole performance stuff, tick. The iPad hasn't got as much love as I would like, but it barely ever does. The look and feel's good. Apple Siri intelligence munged together could be good, or at least it could be what we expect of it in this day and age. So I think that's where you just need to use it day to day, which is why I put it on my phone, because I thought actually if I'm going to actually try out and get some benefit, it needs to be on my phone, on my iPad. I want them to be on the same OS. So I think they'll be interesting to report back in a week or two.
So what you're saying is the last 2 years have kind of been a waste, and they've finally done what they should have done 2 years ago.
Yeah, the last 2 year keynotes. Yeah, in fairness, we had iterative updates, but they sent us down some rabbit holes they shouldn't have done with Apple Intelligence, with Liquid Glass, and they've dialed it all back and got it to the right place. There have been some tangents, like we got better iPad multitasking, which was for me a big tick. I'm sure we've had some camera improvements and filters and other bits, but the main tentpoles the last 2 years, Liquid Glass and Apple Intelligence, were massive missteps that they didn't quite get right. And it feels like now they've had a second run. They've done version 2 of both those. They've launched them at the same time, and they've corrected the last 2 years' mistakes.
Fair enough. A reflection of a company that's sort of thrashing around and trying to sort itself out a little bit. I mean, to give them some props, they've got a lot of things they need to try and keep in some sort of lockstep here. And I think the whole AI thing absolutely caught them by surprise.
And I think it's annoying, though, they rushed to do something with AI. They should have done what Apple do. They didn't rush to get a folding phone out the next year when Samsung launched one. They've waited, 5 years? So why didn't they do that with AI? Why did they rush it and shoot themselves in the foot?
Yeah, it's cost them a lot of goodwill, which, by the way, the new integrated development thing in Xcode that lets you bring devices together will stretch to any screen size. Folding phone confirmed. So...
and there's also like string references and stuff in the source code, so it does feel like the fold's coming, isn't it? Of some way, we just don't know some of the specifics of how is it really going to work and how much money is it going to cost.
I'll put my hat in the ring now. At least $2,000.
Well, I guess they've got to go above the Pro, haven't they? And so,
Well, you know what?
seems like a lot of money.
You know, when Lexus entered the market, Mercedes put their prices up. So same
Really?
thing. Yeah.
So the Samsung Fold's going to go up as well then?
Almost certainly. They're pretty much in lockstep
okay.
with these things. Anything else on the keynote, Chris?
No, but like I say, hindsight, enjoyed it. In the end, I think it was dull to watch, but actually I'm happy with the output. I haven't watched the State of the Union yet, which I will go and watch because I know it's a bit more techy, but I quite enjoy a little bit of that.
I felt it was very average. I'm quite glad they've done the rolling back things to the operating systems I care about. That's actually helpful. We'll wait and see what happens with the intelligence stuff. I don't think Anthropic or ChatGPT are quaking in their boots about this, though.
No, but what will be telling for them is how many customers cancel their subscriptions, assuming they get it included in Apple. But how many Apple users have actually got a device that will run all this? It's not. I know the number will grow. You know, if Apple launching it now, it only runs on last year's premium devices, i.e. phones. That's going to grow as the base level models will get it in years to come.
The fundamental thing, though, is does your average user care? Do they want any of this to begin with? They might want a little tickling of it, but I don't know how many people actually care. So this will be interesting. The mainstream company has done it. The other mainstream company, Google, has put it in their phones. Let's see if it shifts volumes. Let's see if that's what people are crying out for, or if it just causes, why has my phone changed all my passwords and I don't know how everything works anymore?
There is that, but also people have got used to just going to ChatGPT. It's going to take a long time for that muscle memory to change, I'd suggest.
Yeah. There we go. I think we can call that a show, Chris.
I think so. I quite enjoyed that. That was good. If anyone wants to get in contact with us, Rod is on Mastodon. He's at G5Maniac at Mastodon.scot. I am at _CGP at Mastodon.social. You can watch us on YouTube by going to wakefromsleep.com and click on the YouTube link, or you can drop us an email, wakefromsleep@protonmail.com.
Talk to you next week, Chris.
Cheers, Rod.